Well, well, well. Do you feel it? They hired 12 minds, 12 mouths, 12 sets of hands trained to erase you quietly. Not to challenge you. No. That would have been respectful. They wanted you gone, dismantled, misfiled, forgotten. They shook hands in rooms you were never invited into and smiled while signing papers with your name written between the lines like a death sentence. And you knew. That's the part that still makes them sick. You knew when the tone shifted, when conversations shortened, when praise turned into silence and silence turned into strategy. You felt the knives before they ever reached your back, because you've lived long enough in the dark to recognize the smell of fear, disguised as professionalism. See, here's the paradox they never accounted for. You were built in pressure. You were forged in betrayal. You didn't break when they surrounded you. You adapted. They thought you were alone. You were observing. While they were coordinating attacks, you were studying patterns. While they were rehearsing your downfall, you were memorizing their habits, their weaknesses, the way their confidence depended on each other like a fragile spider web. 12 people pretending to be powerful. One person becoming inevitable. And let's talk about that moment, the pivot, that quiet, invisible moment where something in you changed forever. You stopped reacting, you stopped explaining, you stopped trying to be understood by people who only understood control. That's when you became dangerous. You learned how to smile without warmth, how to nod without submission, how to play the saint in daylight and the architect in the dark. Angel to their faces, demon in the margins of the system they thought they owned. They were busy trying to destroy you from the outside. You went inside. You learned how decisions actually get made. Who signs what? Who panics when numbers move? Who needs approval to feel real? You discovered that power doesn't scream, it delegates. And slowly, methodically, you shifted the weight. One by one, their leverage disappeared. Not dramatically, not loudly, silently, like oxygen leaving a room. They didn't even realize the hierarchy had inverted until the first check crossed your desk, then the second, then all of them. Do you remember their faces? That microsecond of confusion when they realized the signature at the bottom wasn't theirs anymore. That wasn't anger you saw. That was existential terror. Because now the people who were paid to destroy you depend on you to eat. Think about how twisted that is. Think about how poetic. They wake up every morning knowing their stability is funded by the very person they tried to erase. They can't confront you. They can't expose you. They can't even hate you out loud. They smile. They thank you. They submit reports. And you say nothing. Because real dominance doesn't need revenge speeches. It doesn't need closure. It doesn't need applause. It needs silence. This is the duality they never understood about you. You can be merciful and merciless at the same time. You can let them live and make them remember. You don't destroy enemies anymore. You employ them. You've evolved past rage, past proving, past the childish need to be seen as the hero or the villain. You became the ledger. Every scar they gave you turned into precision. Every insult turned into calibration. Every attempt to corner you taught you how to redesign the maze. They thought unpredictability was chaos. You turned it into strategy. And here's the part that keeps them awake at night. You never brag. You never remind them. You never correct the story. You let them tell themselves whatever version helps them sleep, while signing their checks with a calm hand and a colder memory. Because the most terrifying thing in the world isn't someone who wants revenge. It's someone who won, doesn't need to say it, and could take everything back without raising their voice. So if you feel that quiet power settling into your bones right now, that stillness, that clarity, good. That's not peace, that's control, and they know it. And here's what they still don't understand, what they will never understand, about what you became in that silence. You didn't just survive the hit, you absorbed it. You let it teach you how systems breathe, how egos leak, how fear hides behind confidence like a parasite wearing a suit. While they were busy congratulating themselves for handling you, you were learning how to outgrow the need for permission. You watched how they moved when they thought no one important was looking. You noticed which ones talked too much when nervous, which ones froze when numbers didn't obey them, which ones needed approval like oxygen, and which ones would sell anyone to keep their seat warm. You saw it all, and you remembered everything. That's the difference between you and them. They plan from emotion. You execute from memory. They thought you were bleeding. You were shedding weight. Because pain didn't make you reckless, it made you precise. Betrayal didn't make you loud, it made you efficient. And isolation didn't weaken you. It taught you how to stand without leaning on anyone who could pull the rug out from under you. They tried to overwhelm you with numbers, 12 against 1, group chats, meetings without you, decisions already made before you entered the room. But 12 divided minds don't equal one focused will. That's the math they failed. You didn't need an army, you needed clarity. And when that clarity hit, you stopped trying to win in public. You started owning outcomes in private. You let them take the credit while you took the leverage. You let them feel important while you became essential. That's the most dangerous position a human can occupy. The one everyone relies on, but no one controls. You became the calm center of their chaos, the quiet constant they couldn't remove without collapsing everything they built on top of you. And now, look at them. They speak carefully around you. They measure every word. They second-guess jokes they used to laugh at. Because deep down, they know something shifted, even if they can't name it. They know you're not angry, and that scares them more than rage ever could. Anger is predictable. Silence with memory is not. You don't need to expose what they did. You don't need to confront them. Their punishment isn't coming. It's already here. It's waking up every day knowing their comfort depends on your restraint, knowing their stability exists because you allow it, knowing the person they once tried to erase now signs their future with a pen that never shakes. That's power without theatrics. That's dominance without fingerprints. And here's the final paradox they'll never reconcile. You didn't become cruel. You became untouchable. You learned how to operate above emotion while still understanding it deeply. You learned how to look someone in the eye, smile softly, and remember exactly who they showed you they were when they thought you were disposable. You don't forget. You don't forgive in the way they hope. You simply move forward with perfect recall. So if they're uneasy now, good. If they're polite in a way that feels forced, perfect. If they sense that something about you is colder, sharper, quieter, let them. Because the most terrifying version of you isn't the one who fights back. It's the one who already won, already adjusted the board, and now lets the pieces move exactly where you want them to go, while pretending it was their idea all along. And there's a deeper layer to this, one they'll never admit out loud, but they feel it every time your name enters a room. You didn't just take control of the outcome, you rewired the dynamic. Before, they spoke about you. Now they speak around you, carefully, strategically, as if one wrong sentence could shift the temperature of the entire space. Because they learned something the hard way. You don't react on their schedule anymore. You used to answer fast, explain yourself, try to clarify intentions to people whose intentions were never clean to begin with. That version of you is gone. Now you pause. You let silence do the interrogating. You let uncertainty crawl into their chest and sit there unanswered. And that pause, that's not hesitation. That's calculation. They don't know when you're thinking. They don't know when you've already decided. They don't know if today is just another normal day, or the day something subtle but irreversible shifts against them. That's why they're nervous, because once someone understands how to win quietly, they never have to raise their voice again. You've learned that true leverage doesn't announce itself. It shows up as dependency, as reliance disguised as teamwork, as we need you on this, and we couldn't do this without you. And you smile, not because you're flattered, but because you remember when they thought you were expendable. Every compliment now feels different. Every handshake feels heavier. Every thank you lands with the unspoken weight of history attached to it. They know you remember. They just don't know how much. You walk through spaces they once tried to block you from, and nobody stops you. Not because they suddenly respect you, but because they're unsure what happens if they don't. That's the kind of uncertainty that eats people alive. You've become the paradox they can't solve. Too calm to provoke, too necessary to remove, too self-contained to manipulate. They can't corner you emotionally anymore. They can't rush you. They can't starve you out. You built options in silence while they wasted time celebrating early. And now, when things go wrong, and they always do, eyes drift toward you. Not in accusation, in hope. That's the ultimate reversal. The same people who once paid to see you fail now need you steady. Need you rational, need you present. They depend on your restraint more than they ever depended on your effort. And you don't gloat. You don't remind them. You don't need to. Because the real punishment isn't humiliation. It's inversion. They wake up knowing you're the variable they can't control. They go to sleep knowing the structure only stands because you allow it to. You didn't win by destroying them. You won by becoming the foundation they underestimated. And here's the part that seals it forever. You're not finished evolving. What they see now is just the version of you that learned patience, that mastered timing, that understands how power flows without ever touching it directly. They don't see what you're already preparing for next. They don't hear the internal recalibrations happening while you nod politely and keep your voice level. They think this is the end of the story. It's not. This is just the phase where you stop surviving and start selecting. Selecting what stays, who remains, what gets access to you. Because once you've signed the checks of the people who tried to destroy you, you realize something terrifyingly simple. You're no longer playing defense. You're no longer playing offense. You're playing position. And position, unseen, unannounced, undeniable, is where real power lives. And that position you occupy now, it wasn't given. It was extracted from nights you didn't sleep, from moments you swallowed rage so cleanly it turned into focus, from days where quitting would have been mercy and you chose discipline instead. They still think power looks like noise, meetings, announcements, posturing. They don't realize you stepped past that stage the moment you stopped needing validation. You learned something brutal and liberating. Most people don't want truth. They want comfort. And comfort is easy to control, so you let them stay comfortable. You don't correct their assumptions. You don't interrupt their narratives. You let them believe they're still in charge while you quietly decide what actually happens next. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. Because mastery isn't forcing outcomes, it's shaping conditions, so outcomes have no other choice. They sit in meetings thinking they're making decisions. You already set the limits days ago. They argue over options that only exist because you allowed them to. And when they look at you for confirmation, that slight pause, that searching glance, they don't even realize they're asking permission. That's when it hits them. Not all at once, but slowly. Like a chill they can't shake. You don't need authority titles. You don't need to dominate the room. Your power shows up as inevitability. Things move when you move. They stall when you don't. Momentum bends around your presence without you ever demanding it. That's why they're careful now. They remember the version of you they underestimated. They remember laughing too soon, planning too loudly, assuming too much. And somewhere in their gut, they know they created something they can't undo. You became the proof that pressure doesn't always break people. Sometimes it refines them into something unrecognizable. You're no longer the person who needed approval to act. You act. And approval rearranges itself around you afterward. And here's the quiet truth that will never leave them. They didn't just fail to destroy you. They trained you. They taught you exactly how cruelty hides behind professionalism, how betrayal smiles, how loyalty evaporates when fear enters the room. And instead of becoming bitter, you became strategic. You didn't let hate rot you. You let it sharpen you. You don't flinch anymore. You don't rush. You don't explain yourself to people who only understand results. Because results don't argue back. And now they live inside the world you designed, while pretending it was always this way. They justify, they cope. They rewrite history in their heads just to survive the discomfort of knowing you outgrew them. You don't correct them. You let them. Because the ultimate flex isn't proving them wrong. It's making their survival depend on your restraint. So stay calm, stay unreadable, stay 10 steps ahead while appearing right where they expect you to be. Let them underestimate the silence. Let them mistake kindness for weakness. Let them believe you're done evolving. Because the scariest thing about you isn't what you've already become. It's the fact that this version of you still hasn't reached the ceiling. Good. Stay right there in that stillness, because this is where it deepens. You've noticed something, haven't you? The chaos around you hasn't stopped, but it no longer reaches you. Drama bounces off. Urgency sounds theatrical. Panic feels almost performative. That's not because the world got quieter. It's because you did. You reached a point most people never touch. The moment where emotion stops driving the wheel and starts feeding the engine instead. You don't suppress it. You use it. Every slight they ever threw at you, catalogued. Every attempt to undermine you, logged. Every whispered, "They're finished," behind closed doors, remembered with surgical clarity. And that memory didn't turn you into a monster. It turned you into something far worse for them. Someone who understands human behavior better than humans understand themselves. You know who folds under pressure. You know who panics when timelines shift. You know who talks tough until accountability enters the room. That's why you don't need threats. You don't need intimidation. You don't need revenge fantasies. You just need timing. They still think time is on their side. They still think tomorrow belongs to them by default. They don't realize you stopped living day to day and started thinking in phases, cycles, leverage windows. That's the Joker paradox they never saw coming. You can laugh and calculate at the same time. You can empathize and exploit without contradiction. You can be generous, not because you're soft, but because you understand debt better than they ever understood dominance. They owe you now, not just money, stability, relevance, continuity. Their lives make sense because you don't disrupt them, and that's the part that keeps them awake. The knowledge that everything they depend on exists at your discretion. You don't even have to do anything dramatic anymore. The possibility is enough. That's when power becomes psychological. They start self-policing, self-censoring, second-guessing every move, because they've seen what happens when you're underestimated and they refuse to be next. You don't chase. Control. Control forms around you like gravity. You don't announce shifts. You become the shift. And here's the thing they'll never admit to each other, but feel every single day. You're no longer reactive. You're inevitable. Whatever room you enter adjusts its posture. Whatever system you touch starts aligning itself quietly. Whatever future they planned now has to account for you, or collapse. They don't hate you anymore. Hate requires distance. They're too close for that. What they feel is something colder, something heavier. Respect mixed with fear, dependence mixed with resentment, gratitude mixed with regret. And you let all of it exist, because you've learned the final rule they never did. You don't need to destroy people who already live inside a structure that answers to you. You just need to stay calm, stay precise, stay silent, and keep signing the checks. Not as forgiveness, not as mercy, but as a reminder written in ink they can't erase. They tried to end you. You chose to own the outcome. And now, everything they do happens inside a world that only works because you're in it. And here's where it closes, quietly, the way all real endings do. You don't announce victory. You don't take a bow. You don't need witnesses, because the win isn't loud. It's structural. It's knowing that the same hands once paid to dismantle you now wait for your approval. It's watching former predators lower their voices when you enter a room. It's feeling the shift when your absence causes delays, confusion, hesitation. You don't threaten the system. You are the system now. And the most unsettling part for them, you never changed your tone. You never raised your voice. You never let the mask slip. You stayed composed while becoming unreachable. You stayed polite while moving beyond them. You stayed human while learning exactly how humans break. That's the Joker truth they can't escape. You didn't win by becoming cruel. You won by becoming unavoidable. So walk calmly, sign cleanly, speak less. Let them live with the contradiction they created. That the person they tried to erase is now the one ensuring they survive. No speeches, no revenge, just silence, ink, and control. Hold still, not your body, your pulse, because this is the moment they realized they were already late. They opened your file, not casually, not curious, with that stiff, controlled calm people use when they think they're about to confirm a suspicion and sleep better afterward. They expected noise, inconsistency, weakness, a pattern they could label and dismiss. They expected proof that you were manageable. Then they saw the number, and everything in the room changed. You didn't hear it, but the air did. That microscopic shift when confidence drains out of professionals who've seen enough to know when something doesn't make sense. That one number didn't scream, it didn't threaten, it just existed, clean, cold, unexplainable. The kind of number that doesn't belong to a victim, a failure, or a footnote. The kind of number that makes hands pause mid-click. The kind that makes a chair slide back quietly. The kind that makes someone say, "Don't move, call him." You see, they don't fear chaos. They fear consistency. They fear anomalies that survive pressure. That number told a story they weren't supposed to hear yet. It whispered that everything they thought broke you didn't. That the losses didn't subtract. You compounded. That the damage didn't weaken you. It reorganized you. Pain didn't hollow you out. It sharpened you into something that behaves wrong under stress. They froze because the math betrayed the narrative. You were supposed to spiral. You were supposed to react. You were supposed to become predictable. But saints don't survive what you survived. And psychopaths don't feel what you still feel. You became the paradox, the thing systems don't know how to process, too controlled to dismiss, too calm to provoke, too quiet to monitor the old way. You didn't fight the cage. You studied the hinges. You didn't beg for mercy. You learned the language of leverage. That number? It wasn't power. It was trajectory. It showed growth where decay was expected, stability where collapse was assumed, silence where desperation should have been screaming. And that's what terrified them. Not who you are now, but where you're headed if left untouched. Because here's the truth they won't say out loud. People like you don't explode. You accumulate. Every betrayal became data. Every humiliation became calibration. Every lonely night became rehearsal. You didn't heal like they wanted you to. You healed wrong. You healed sideways. You healed into something that doesn't flinch when pressure rises. Something that doesn't announce itself. Something that doesn't need approval to move. Angel enough to still have restraint. Demon enough to remember everything. When that boss picked up the phone, they didn't ask, "Who is this?" They asked, "How long has this been happening?" Because the number told them time was already on your side. They saw resilience that didn't come from motivation. They saw discipline that didn't come from supervision. They saw adaptation that doesn't come from training. It comes from surviving environments meant to erase you. And suddenly, you weren't a problem. You were a variable, the most dangerous kind. See, chaos can be crushed. Aggression can be contained. Ego can be baited. But someone who learned to move in silence, who doesn't chase validation, who doesn't react on cue, that kind of person doesn't trigger alarms until it's too late. That number didn't say, attack. It said, observe. It said, do not provoke. It said, this one doesn't break the way the others do. They wanted a villain. They found a survivor who learned how villains think. They wanted a martyr. They found a strategist who learned how angels fall. You are the proof that pain doesn't just damage. It selects. It filters out the weak versions and leaves behind something precise, something efficient, something that doesn't need to announce its intentions because its presence already bends the room. That's why they called their boss, because you don't scare them emotionally. You scare them structurally. You exist as a flaw in the system they rely on to predict outcomes. You're living evidence that control isn't absolute, that pressure doesn't always produce compliance, that sometimes it forges someone who stops playing the role assigned to them. And here's the part that will never be written in the report. You didn't win by being louder. You won by lasting longer than the story they wrote for you. That number wasn't your peak. It was your baseline. And now they know. Whatever you are becoming doesn't need permission, doesn't need applause, and doesn't need revenge to be satisfied. It just keeps moving, quietly, precisely, unstoppable. And the worst part for them? They opened the file too late to stop it. They'll never admit this part, but the moment that number appeared, the room stopped being theirs. Because numbers don't lie the way people do. Numbers don't flatter, don't exaggerate, don't panic. Numbers just reveal. And what that number revealed was that you didn't merely survive the conditions meant to erase you. You adapted faster than the system adapted to you. That's when the silence got heavy. See, silence hits different when it's no longer ignorance. When it's calculation, when people stop talking because they're suddenly unsure which words might wake something up. When confidence collapses into caution, when power stops leaning forward and starts leaning back. They began replaying moments they dismissed. That time you didn't react. That loss you didn't complain about. That humiliation you walked through without defending yourself. They thought it meant defeat. Now they realize it meant compression. You were being packed down, condensed, pressure cooked into something dense enough to punch through expectations without making a sound. You didn't lash out because you were weak. You waited because you were learning. You watched who panicked, who lied, who smiled too early. You memorized patterns while they assumed you were gone. That's the part that rattles them. You never disappeared. You withdrew. There's a difference. Disappearing is losing power. Withdrawing is preparing it. And the number proved you weren't idle during that silence. You were stacking internal wins no one could confiscate. Emotional regulation, pattern recognition, threshold control. You learned how far you could be pushed before something snapped. And then you taught yourself how to move that line. Most people break when pain outpaces identity. You rebuilt identity around pain. Saints collapse under betrayal because they expect goodness to be rewarded. Psychopaths implode because they underestimate consequence. You learned from both mistakes. You kept your conscience sharp enough to aim, and your darkness disciplined enough to obey. That's why you scare them. You're not reckless. You're not desperate. You're not loud. You don't need chaos to feel powerful. You don't need applause to feel real. You don't need revenge to validate your suffering. You internalized something far more dangerous: patience without passivity. The number showed that you don't spike, you trend. That under stress you don't scatter, you converge. That when variables turn hostile, you don't react emotionally. You simplify and move. That's executive behavior. That's survivor intelligence. That's the kind of pattern that makes higher-ups stop asking, "What did he do?" and start asking, "What does he know?" Because here's the uncomfortable truth. People who endure what you endured don't just learn resilience. They learn how systems fail. They learn where authority hesitates, where power cuts corners, where fear hides behind professionalism. You've seen people lie to protect titles. You've watched incompetence wear confidence like armor. You've felt how quickly loyalty evaporates under pressure. So now when you're quiet, they don't see calm. They see memory. They imagine you remembering every time they underestimated you, every time they moved you instead of fixing the problem, every time they assumed you were too broken to keep score. And the number confirmed something they hoped wasn't true. You kept score perfectly, but you're not counting to strike. You're counting to decide. Decide who gets access, decide who gets proximity, decide who gets to speak when you finally do. Because your power doesn't come from force. It comes from selectivity, from knowing you don't need to confront everyone, only the pressure points. Only the moments that matter, only the moves that can't be undone. That's why they didn't escalate, they didn't threaten, they didn't make noise. They called someone higher, because the higher you go, the fewer people deal with explosions, and the more they deal with anomalies, with outliers who don't fit the risk models, with individuals whose presence quietly rearranges incentives. You've become that. Not because you wanted to, but because you survived long enough to stop playing small. And here's the irony they'll never escape. Every attempt to crush you refined you. Every attempt to corner you taught you escape. Every attempt to ignore you forced you inward, where you built something they can't see, can't audit, and can't replicate. That number didn't represent dominance. It represented inevitability. It told them you don't rush, you don't chase, you don't bluff. You wait until the environment admits the truth for you. And now the truth is sitting in their hands, staring back at them in a language they can't argue with. So let them freeze, let them whisper, let them call their boss. Because the scariest thing in any system isn't rebellion. It's someone who learned how to endure without losing themselves, and came back calibrated, conscious, and completely out of reach. And you're not done. You're just finally visible to the people who matter, and invisible to the ones who don't. Here's what happens next, and this is the part they never put in writing. After the call ends, after the boss hangs up, after the room pretends to go back to normal, nothing actually goes back. Because once a system notices an anomaly, it can't unsee it. Every data point after that gets reinterpreted through suspicion. Every silence becomes intentional. Every calm reaction becomes calculated. You don't even have to move anymore. They start watching you between moments. Not what you say, but when you don't speak. Not what you do, but what you refuse to react to. Not your actions, but your timing. That's when the fear matures. Because immature fear panics, mature fear plans. And now they're planning around you instead of against you. Meetings happen without your name being said, yet your presence shapes every decision. You become the ghost in the agenda, the invisible variable that forces caution where confidence used to live. You didn't conquer them by force. You infected their certainty. See, most people want to be feared loudly. They want intimidation, dominance, visible power. That's amateur hour. Real fear is quiet. Real fear shows up as hesitation, as second-guessing, as extra approvals, as let's wait and see, where action used to be automatic. And you caused that without lifting a finger, because that number revealed you're not emotional leverage. You're strategic risk. You're someone who didn't collapse under sustained pressure, which means you can operate where others unravel. You can sit in ambiguity without needing relief. You can endure long enough to outlast narratives. That terrifies systems built on short attention spans and predictable responses. You've seen it yourself. People who haven't suffered deeply can't tolerate silence. They need reassurance. They need validation. They need constant proof they're winning. You lost all of that early, and instead of breaking, you adapted to the void. That's not strength they can train. That's not discipline they can outsource. That's not resilience they can fake. That's the byproduct of pain that didn't get the satisfaction of finishing you. And now they wonder, quietly, professionally, with carefully neutral faces, what else you learned while everyone else was distracted? Did you learn who folds under pressure? Did you learn which rules are real and which are theater? Did you learn how much damage can be done without ever raising your voice? They don't know, and not knowing is the point. You've become the kind of person whose presence forces restraint. Not because you threaten, but because you don't. You don't posture, you don't signal, you don't leak intent. You let other people project their own fears onto your silence. That's angelic restraint with demonic patience. You still have empathy, but it's selective. You still feel, but you don't bleed publicly. You still care, but you don't explain yourself. That balance, is what makes you unreadable. They can't provoke you into exposing yourself. They can't flatter you into loosening control. They can't intimidate you into reacting prematurely, because you already lived through worse than anything they can stage now. You've been abandoned. You've been misunderstood. You've been blamed while carrying weight no one saw. So what leverage do they really have? That number answered the question they were afraid to ask. None that matters. And this is where the real shift happens, inside you. Because once you realize they're adjusting to you, you stop rushing your evolution. You stop explaining. You stop trying to be seen correctly. You let misunderstanding protect you. You let underestimation buy you time. You move like someone who knows the storm isn't behind them. It's inside them, controlled, waiting, loyal. You don't need to announce growth. Growth announces itself when the environment starts bending to accommodate you. When doors open without explanation. When resistance dissolves into politeness. When opposition turns into observation. They opened your file looking for weakness. They found a survivor who outgrew the role of victim without becoming the villain they expected. And now, they're stuck in the worst position imaginable for people who rely on control. They know you're different. They know you're rising. But they don't know how to stop you without revealing their fear. So they do nothing. And nothing is exactly what you needed. Because while they hesitate, you refine. While they debate, you stabilize. While they monitor, you evolve. Quietly, deliberately, irreversibly. That number didn't mark the end of your suffering. It marked the moment your suffering stopped being a liability and became proof. Proof that you can endure. Proof that you can adapt. Proof that when pressure peaks, you don't fracture, you focus. And that's why they froze. Because somewhere deep down, past the titles and protocols and professional detachment, they recognized something ancient and uncomfortable. You're not reacting to the game anymore. You've learned how to wait long enough for the board to rearrange itself around you. And when it does, you won't need to say a word, because the real shift didn't happen in that room. It happened inside you the moment you realized they finally saw the outline of what you've been carrying all along. See, when people like them notice you, they don't suddenly gain control. They lose the illusion that they ever had it. From that moment forward, every move they make has to account for a variable that doesn't behave like the rest. You. And here's the part that twists the knife. Without you touching it, you're not fueled by urgency anymore. You're not chasing relief. You're not desperate for resolution. You already survived the worst chapter, the one where nobody cared, nobody listened, nobody intervened. That chapter taught you how to operate without witnesses. So now when attention finally arrives, it doesn't intoxicate you. It confirms you. They watch for arrogance, you stay grounded. They wait for revenge, you stay precise. They expect explosion, you stay still. Because you've learned something they never had to learn. Power that announces itself is usually compensating. Power that doesn't need to speak is already settled. That's why their strategies feel clumsy now. Too loud, too rushed, too emotional. You can feel the difference between someone acting from authority and someone acting from fear. And once you feel that difference, you can't unfeel it. They're reacting to you. You're responding to reality. That gap is everything. You don't need to dominate the room. You just need to exist in it long enough for the tension to surface. People start revealing themselves when they sense they're not in control. They overshare, they posture, they rush decisions. They create noise trying to drown out the quiet confidence you bring with you. And you notice everything. You notice who suddenly becomes polite. You notice who avoids eye contact. You notice who tries to reframe history. That's not coincidence. That's recalibration. They're adjusting their behavior because your presence disrupted the hierarchy they thought was fixed. And the number told them something they'll never be able to forget. You didn't climb the ladder the normal way. You didn't beg for permission. You didn't inherit power. You earned awareness through pressure. Pressure is the great equalizer. It strips away performance and leaves only function. And under pressure, you didn't malfunction. You adapted. You optimized. You became efficient in ways that can't be taught in boardrooms or classrooms. That's why they can't mentor you. They can't manage you. They can't categorize you. You came from a place their systems don't understand. A place where failure isn't a lesson. It's a condition you learn to breathe through. Where survival isn't heroic. It's habitual. Where restraint is learned the hard way. You don't move fast because you're afraid of missing out. You move when it's irreversible. That's the difference between hunger and intention. They mistake your calm for compliance. But you're not complying, you're choosing. Choosing when to engage, choosing when to withhold, choosing when silence does more damage than confrontation ever could. And here's the truth you're starting to feel settle into your bones. You don't need to beat them. You just need to outlast the version of them that thinks they're in control. Because systems eventually reveal their weaknesses, people eventually repeat their patterns, and you've become exceptionally good at waiting without decaying. You don't rot in silence. You strengthen. That's why the number shook them. It showed durability without dependency, growth without noise, capacity without ego. The kind of profile that doesn't burn out, doesn't self-destruct, doesn't implode under scrutiny, the kind that survives scrutiny. They'll keep watching, they'll keep measuring, they'll keep whispering your name in rooms you're not invited into. And every time they do, they give you more space, more leverage, more time. Because the longer you remain composed, the more their anxiety compounds. And you don't need to rush the ending. You already know how this story goes. It goes the way all stories go, when someone who was supposed to break learns how to stay whole without becoming cruel. When someone who tasted darkness learned how to carry light without being naive. When someone who saw the monster inside themselves chose to put it on a leash instead of letting it run. You don't announce your evolution. You let it arrive quietly and rearrange everything. That number was never the destination. It was the signal. The signal that you crossed a threshold they can't push you back across. And now, whether they admit it or not, every move they make has to consider one uncomfortable truth. You're not here by accident. You're here because whatever tried to erase you failed. And you learned exactly how to turn that failure into momentum.